You are welcome to the Guru's Perspective. But before we continue today, I want to beg you once again, please, as you watch this video, as you listen, do us a favor. Your comments are very, very necessary. Drop your comment at the comment box. Share it favorably. But don't forget to like it. If you haven't subscribed before, opportunity for you to subscribe. Let us do it. Let us speak a little deeper about the subsidy removal or not to be removed. The price as fixed by the regulator in the deregulated circumstances. Let us take it out. But as against floating on top of the water today, let us go deep into the bottom of the sea. Maybe when we get to the bed, the sea bed, we might see some facts that will help us. In order to do that favorably, I am not going to lay too much emphasis on what President Ahmed Bola Tinubu said on his inaugural speech or not. I will not lay too much. Or what the Nigerian Labour Congress is saying today, the trade union is saying today. No, that's not the issue. But one thing I will establish before any other movement into what I will call voyage of discovery that we are embarking upon now. It has not been embarked upon like this before. So please listen to it attentively. Is that either subsidy is removed or not removed, the poor Nigerian that will carry the weight of not less than 90% of the population will always be scammed. They will not be beneficiary of anything. The political leadership, the technocrats, those who are leading Nigeria, they will always be the gainer. So everything for them, either they remove subsidy or they fail to remove subsidy, but nothing for the masses that, I repeat again, way up to 90% of the total population. Let's go. The issue is that it has been announced over and over again by the government that the subsidy we are paying, we are subsidizing smugglers that take the fare, finished product out of Nigeria. Again, please, let me lay emphasis here. What we want to discuss now is subsidy on the fare. The fare imported. It is not the stealing of the crude oil. It's crude well refined that bring fare out, PMS, which is just a byproduct, one of the 17 byproducts of the crude refined. If we want to talk of the crude, this story is a different platform. Let us use this today purely on the subsidy that is there. Now, whoever that is deciding the landing cost is the NNPC. Before this regime, which now gave arbitrarily importation of fare to NNPC, that NNPC is monopolizing, the marketers were going there. As of that time, the marketers will tell you, this is the landing cost. Let us not ask questions about the landing cost. Why do we have landing cost? We have landing cost because we could not refine our product. With 4 refineries in existence, 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Ekpa, near Warri, 1 in Kaduna. We could not refine anyone. We could not refine a single thing. So it is for that reason that, for my people to see fair to you, let me import refined product, which is PMS. The question is that if our refineries were able to refine our consumption, after all, 450,000 barrels are located for Nigeria consumption daily basis. If the refineries were able to refine this, shall we now be importing again and now talking of landing costs? No. It is those that would not want the refineries to work more pronounced from 80s that are behind the landing cost calculation. Let us take it flat into our understanding. If the truth must be told, what is the consuming? What the quantity of fare that Nigeria consumes per day? I can recall that the group managing director of the NNPC Limited, Milikele Kolo Yari, had said one that we don't even know. He said it, that we don't know the consumption rate, what we consume per day. In the beginning, they started with 30 million liters. Then they moved to 35 million liters. Even when they said 30 million liters, investigation then knew that it was over-bloated. Nigerians never consumed as half of that. Then they moved to 40 million liters. Then one day, they now told us that Nigeria consumption now is 60 million liters per day. And when this was mentioned, I remember the outgone, I don't know whether he's still there, the Comptroller General of the Nigerian Customs Services, Colonel Ali, went to the National Assembly. Colonel Ali, in his capacity, went to the National Assembly and told them that this figure being flattened out by NNPC was falsification. That how would they just say Nigeria is consuming so. How do they arrive on that? It's on record. Please, you can go to the National Assembly to check. Then we now left that. Then the NNPC personally came to the National Assembly to tell us that Nigeria consumption per day is 60 million liters. But they release 96 million liters every day to be for consumption. If you, who is the monopoly, who is a monopolist, telling us that our consumption per day is 60 million liters, why therefore are you releasing 96 million liters? Which means deliberately you overfloated, you overbloated the number of liters, the number of liters released with 36 million liters. Which means you prepared that deliberately for the smugglers to take outside Nigeria. Please, my conclusion is not far-fetched. The chief accounting officer of NNPC, within that period, went equally to the National Assembly and told the National Assembly that if you have 5 million naira in your pocket, you can smuggle any amount of tankers loaded with fuel outside Nigeria. And he told us that Cameroon refinery burnt about 2 or 3 years ago, that they did not make effort at all to repay it because they depend on Nigeria, not crude, Nigeria finished product, which is PMS. And he mentioned all the countries where, and recently, a few days ago, the same group managing director of the NNPC was talking to us, and he said he traveled to Sudan on business as a group managing director of NNPC. That in Sudan, somebody met him and told him, I learned you are from NNPC. He said, yes. Please, how can you help me to register so I can be getting Nigeria Petrol, PMS, in Sudan? He now told us that is how far our petrol is being taken to. It is the group managing director that said this. So this is why we must look at the matter. What is the fact? In order for us to get the matter, to get to the bottom of the matter, we shall carry our investigation to 34 years behind. We are investigating the matter into 34 years when it grew up. What happened in 34 years ago? What are the facts that are on ground that will determine this today, that either where subsidies removed or not removed, it is not for the benefit of 90% of Nigerian citizens. It is only benefit of the ruling class, which is at any given time less than 10%. But first of all, let us look at the difficulty of where we are going now. Because at the end of all this show we are going now, this President Tinubu removed, the Labour Congress is saying there shall be nothing benefiting the Nigerian masses, which account for the 90%. Everything shall be for the benefit of the ruling class. But first of all, let us listen to Okonjo Iweala when she was the coordinating minister of the Nigerian economy. Effort made by that government, under Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, to bring normalcy to the so-called subsidy, which is nothing but scam totally. Listen to Okonjo Iweala and hear what she said. Listen to that.
Has to do with a very specific one in my country, the cleanup of the fuel subsidy regime in 2012 during my second stint as finance minister. Nigeria has a fiscally challenging fuel subsidy regime. The country exports crude oil and imports most of its refined needs because its refineries are in very bad shape. and provides a subsidy for the sales of refined oil at the pump. At the end of 2011, a total of 1.73 trillion naira, US $11 billion equivalent, was submitted as claims for subsidies by 143 marketers who were importing the product. These numbers seemed horrendously large compared to what I had last seen when I was in government in 2006, which was closer to $2 billion in subsidy. So we decided to audit these claims. We audited about $8.4 billion worth of claims, and we found $2.5 billion worth of fraud in these claims, i.e., many of these marketers were trying to claim $2.5 billion fraudulently. With the full backing of the president and the economic team, we decided that we were not going to entertain these claims or to pay. The pressure from the affected marketers was tremendous, as we tried not only to say we would not pay, but also we would clean up the whole mechanism for the subsidy claims and put in place something more transparent, something clearer. This did not go down well with them. When we stuck to our position of non-payment and implementation of the new verification regime, these strong and well-connected vested interests were angered and seemed to blame me personally for this. There were personal consequences. My 83-year-old mother, a retired professor of sociology, was kidnapped by 4 young men and held for 5 days. Keeping her wits about her as she was totally terrified, she asked them why she had been kidnapped. And they told her, quote, "Because your daughter, the finance minister, refused to pay oil marketers their dues." The kidnappers, negotiating with my brother, demanded my resignation publicly. I should go on television publicly and announce my resignation and depart from the country as a condition for my mother's release. Needless to say, these were some of the worst days of my life. Imagine, when you are in position, you want your parents, all of whom are here with you today, and your relatives, to be proud of you. You want to be a source of good for your family. You can imagine how I felt sitting there and thinking, just because of trying to do something right, to implement a good bit of policy that was good for the country, this could lead to the taking of my mother's life. These were some of the worst days of my life. With my father's support, the firm resolve of the president, we all decided I should not give in to the blackmailers, and I refused to resign. Following a manhunt, I'm sorry, I still feel emotional when I talk about it. And this story is not really publicly known, so this is probably the first time I'm giving the full details. Following a manhunt for my mother by police and security agencies, she was able to make a dramatic escape after 5 days in captivity, where she had only been given water and half of a sausage roll. So here was a well-justified cleanup and reform of a policy, but implemented in a dangerous reform environment where the losers in the reform, well-entrenched vested interests, decided to fight back to derail implementation. The decision not to resign was a very difficult and risky one. As it turned out, it worked. But there are days I ask myself, on my down days, what if it hadn't? What if they had gone ahead and murdered my mother, as she overheard them planning to do, with one of their handlers on the phone? Could I have justified trading off firmness on policy and standing up to blackmailers, implementing a good piece of public policy for my mother's life? What decision would you have made? Faculty, what decision would you have made? I know that one other brave hero, a woman I admire so much, brave activist and reformer Aung San Suu Kyi, was faced with an equally terrible decision. Leave Myanmar to be with her dying husband in England, I'm sure you all know the story, and never come back to finish the push for democracy in the country she loved, or stay and let her loved one, her husband, die without her by his side. She chose the fight for democracy, and I'm sure it's one of the most terrible and toughest decisions she ever had to make. Graduates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe I've made my point. In an imperfect world, good public policy has enemies and friends.